Hey everyone, welcome to the Daily here on MLSsoccer.com. Josh Weisenhunt and Andrew Wiebe joining you here from New York City. We're going to start with some New York City news. Of course, New York City FC was announced as the 20th Major League Soccer club last May, but some new news has come out regarding where they are going to play. For a while, it looked like Queens was the likely destination, but Andrew, now we have some pretty interesting quotes from the president of the Bronx, the borough itself, Ruben Diaz Jr., coming out and really voicing his support for having the stadium there.
Yeah, it's a battle of the boroughs at this point. As you said, we all expected that Queens would be the home of NYCFC. Flushing Meadows Corona Park has been mooted as the home for a long time now. That seems to have lost some momentum, and now borough president, as you said, he's throwing down the gauntlet. He said, look, there doesn't appear to be very much enthusiasm for this project in Queens, so bring it to the Bronx. He sent a letter to Commissioner Don Garber stating as much, although his spokesman did say that, look, this is preliminary. There have not yet been talks between the two. That, of course, prompted someone to fire back from Queens, an assemblyman saying, look, if the Subway Series is any indication, it's coming back to Queens. I'm not so sure about that logic, but I think it bodes well for this team that you have multiple boroughs vying for their residency. Remember, They come into MLS in 2015. They've already said probably a temporary venue for 2 to 3 years, so we're probably looking at a little time before this really materializes.
Yep, either way, it's certainly going to be fun to watch. Of course, we will have updates, all updates as they pertain to NYCFC on MLSsoccer.com. Taking you into the weekend, of course, we have some interesting matchups around MLS. Andrew, let's start with a recent rematch, Portland and Dallas at Geldwen Field. That one's going to be 5 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. These two clubs met back in May, and they both had midweek Open Cup fixtures. How do you see this one going?
Well, interesting enough, they're actually going to have a rematch in the Open Cup quarterfinals. So this is a little bit of a preemptive strike from both sides. How much will they give away? Who knows? I think either way you're going to see goals in this game. In 6 historical meetings between these two teams, 20 goals. That is an awful lot of scoring. Remember, though, some guys out of this one. No Rodney Wallace for the Timbers, and, of course, no Blas Perez or Raul Fernandez for FC Dallas. That could affect some lineups, but I expect some fireworks up at Geldwen Field.
Yeah, going to be a good one. Again, 5 p.m. Eastern on ESPN, and directly following that, 7 p.m. Eastern on MLS Live. This is actually an interesting one, Andrew. DC and Toronto from RFK. What do we think? I feel like DC's rounding into a little bit of form, maybe.
Well, they better start rounding into form. But look, this is 23 games combined between these two teams without an MLS win.
Yep.
Both sides are as desperate as they come. On one side, you said it, DC, they got that draw against New England, played well, especially defensively, and then Dwayne De Rosario with the hat trick midweek in that Open Cup action. Is that a little bit of breath of fresh air? Who knows? What we do know is that Chris Pontius is not going to play in this match. That concussion will keep him out. Meanwhile, on the other side, no Terry Dunfield for sure for Toronto. He was put on waivers yesterday. He will no longer be with the team. Ryan Nelson saying, look, we just need some flexibility. We got some guys lined up here in the summer window. We'd like to bring them in. And Rodney Wallace, not Rodney Wallace, Jeremy Hall and Mateus Laba have been very good in the center of the park. So not necessarily at need. Unfortunately, Terry Dunfield out.
Yeah, and finally, 9 p.m. Eastern, the MLS Stream of the Week presented by Samsung, Colorado and San Jose. These two sides also met recently, but I feel like the main intrigue around this one, there's a new guy in charge, Mark Watson in San Jose. What do you think he's going to bring to the table? What sort of shot in the arm is he going to give to the San Jose side?
Well, I don't think you're going to change a whole lot. He has said that they don't want to be quite so direct. They haven't moved the ball as well, so I think you'll see them try to do that a little bit more. Still, this is not going to be a team that completely changes their identity. They still are led by Chris Wondolowski. Desperately needs some goals from him, but they've been awful on the road for the past month or so. Last 4 games, including Open Cup action, 9 goals allowed, no goals scored, and Colorado has been very good at home. I think Irwin in goal has been a revelation for them. We'll see if he can pull off the shutout again.
Yeah, certainly. 9 p.m. Eastern, the MLS Stream of the Week presented by Samsung. Make sure you log on and watch that. It'll be the debut for San Jose interim head coach Mark Watson. And Andrew, speaking of new head coaches, Chivas USA yesterday introduced their new man in charge, Jose Luis Real. He had some really interesting quotes, mainly saying that this is the biggest challenge of my career so far. What do you think he's going to turn things around there?
Well, I think specifically he said it's the most important challenge in my career, which is a little bit shocking for those who have paid attention to his career. Obviously led Guadalajara to that Copa Libertadores final. That is huge. That is the biggest tournament in this hemisphere, in my opinion. So that's certainly a statement of intent from Real. We'll see what he can do with this team. They haven't won since late March. They're at the bottom of the Western Conference. Not a lot of hope. Knocked out of the Open Cup. He needs to bring a breath of fresh air, some belief, something. They need something to track on if they're going to move on from here.
Yeah, certainly. Of course, they are off this weekend, so we will obviously continue to monitor everything going on around Chivas and their new head man, Jose Luis Real. You can check out that story and all the lead up to the weekend coverage on MLSsoccer.com. Couple things for you before we get out of here for the weekend. Andrew, let's talk fantasy. It's another big weekend coming up. A lot of teams have double games going. What's one thing, what are a couple players that fans really should be considering before they set their lineups at 4:45 on Saturday?
Well, before we get into it, make sure you check out the starting lineup with Jason and Sagini and I. We answered your questions. There's a lot of insight there, but we'll do the quick and dirty right now. You mentioned it, double games, 4 teams, Colorado, Montreal, Vancouver, and Portland. Those are the teams you need to load up on. Your opponents will have a lot of those guys. Personally, I have 7 on my team. Even took a point deduction to do it. One guy from each team here that you might consider picking up from Vancouver. Kenny Miller, back in the starting lineup, should be productive. For Montreal, Marco Di Vaio has been productive all year long. They had a break last week. He should be rested and ready. From Portland, Diego Valeri, after injury, hitting a vein of form. You know he has the capability for big points. And finally, from Colorado, Chris Clute, a great play at outside back. And then Clint Irwin has been magnificent all season long. Another shutout, maybe in the offing for him with San Jose coming into Colorado. And also, 3 p.m. Eastern on the site today, Clint Irwin going to be part of a Google Hangout. So if you want to get to know the man behind the gloves, tune into that one.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. Of course, MLSsoccer.com. You can watch that. If you have a question for Clint, you feel free to leave it in the comments below or go on Twitter, use the hashtag question for Clint. Couple more things before we bounce today. MLS All-Star voting is underway. Make sure you log on to MLSsoccer.com/All-Star and get your votes in. There are a couple videos on the site right now to help you do that. Matt Doyle and Dan Hayek run through the top midfielder candidates available to Peter Vermes against Roma. And of course, we have a top 5 video coming out today, the top 5 Andrew Hondurans all-time in MLS. Of course, that one is before the big U.S.-Honduras match up next week at Rio Tinto Stadium in Salt Lake. So that does it for us here on The Daily. We hope you guys have a great weekend. We'll talk to you guys on Monday.